Thank you, Heather, and thank you to all my colleagues for inviting me here, not only for this talk, but for the semester. I've really enjoyed my time here in Vancouver. Just a wonderful place to live, wonderful colleagues, a wonderful school to be a part of. I can't say enough about it. So to back up a second, there's 6 different talks I've been giving over the last few years. And I was trying to figure out which talk to give here for the colloquium and settled on maybe a talk that hopefully would have the most value added for my colleagues in SLAES, for the rest of the university campus. But some of you know me as the co-creator of WISE, and I have a bunch of slides on what WISE is and online education. You may or may not know me as the principal investigator for the Kaufman campus initiative in central New York, but I give quite a few talks on that. I'm doing research on religion and entrepreneurship that has nothing to do with library and information science, I realize, but it is the impact of religious affiliation on one's success as an entrepreneur and one's success in self-employment. It's a very interesting talk, but probably not appropriate for this crowd. LibValue, which is a large study that we're doing looking at the value of the academic library, led by Carol Tenneper at the University of Tennessee. I'll be giving that talk this afternoon in Heather's class at 3:15 in Barber 461. I don't know if it's an open invite for anybody else that wants to come, but if you want to hear about my research on the value of the academic library, that's the LibValue stuff. Wonderful project, like I said, led by Carol Tenneper at the University of Tennessee. Both Don King, who some of you might know for his research on library assessment, and myself were sort of co-leads with Carol on that. And then I've given a number of talks on academic entrepreneurship. What does it mean to have an entrepreneurial university? Including a talk a few weeks ago at the Association of Professional Accrediting Bodies, where I made the convincing argument that accreditation and innovation are not enemies. They can go together, and that going through accreditation, as the school is, should not stop one from being innovative and entrepreneurial. As well as talks about our partnership with Jpmorgan Chase, which was another large partnership that we brought to campus, the Syracuse University campus, which was actually, it started out as a $90 million partnership. After 2008, it turned into a $30 million partnership. It's still pretty good, with the iSchool as the lead on that partnership, and I'll talk a little bit about that. So I thought it would be best, the most value added, to talk about iSchool innovation and entrepreneurship in the Syracuse context, because really that's the only thing I have the business talking about, is what it's been like at Syracuse University and what we've been doing as an iSchool to infuse innovation and entrepreneurship in not only in our curriculum, but in our philosophy and our attitude in what we are as a school or college. Hopefully I can finish this all in the allotted time, too. You really can't talk about innovation at the Syracuse iSchool without talking about these two gentlemen. Some of you might know who they are. Edie, you might know who they are. Robert Taylor is the black and white photo in the top left, and Ray Von Dran is the color photo on the bottom right. Both distinguished deans who served as deans at Syracuse University. Unfortunately, both have passed since that time. Robert Taylor was the dean in the 70s at Syracuse University, and he changed the School of Library Science to the School of Information Studies. And boy, did he get hell when he did that. I had the pleasure of having 2 wonderful lunches with Bob to talk about his experiences during that time. And he said the hate mail just poured in from all the alumni who were working librarians who did not want the name of their school touched or changed. The best story, though, is he got a particular virile letter from a local public librarian, an individual that was the head of the local public library, and he said, you know, I've got to talk to you. And he called this person up and said, let's meet for lunch. I really want to talk to you about what it means to be an information school. All right? Now, Bob Taylor does not come from a library science background. To make it worse, he comes from the OSA, the predecessor of the CIA. He was actually desk mates with Henry Kissinger, right? And so was into the using information to add value, but not everybody likes the CIA as an organization. So he went to have lunch with this individual to convince her that we really were entering an information age, and it was okay to change the name of the school from the School of Library Science to the School of Information Studies. And the end of that story is a year later they got married. Because Faye Taylor and Bob Taylor spent many lunches together, and he ultimately proposed. And it's just a wonderful story that he always used to tell with his wife, and she enjoyed it too. In 1995, Ray Von Drand became dean of the iSchool at Syracuse, and served as dean from 1995 until 2007. I had the pleasure of serving as his associate dean from 2000 to 2007. And many of you know that Ray Von Drand was just wonderful, big personality of leadership, and was also one of the driving forces in what's currently regarded as the iSchool movement. And there's a longer, richer history there. But Ray was the kind of individual that when he was in the room, you made no mistake that he was in the room, because he had that kind of personality and became a driving force for it. I thought it was best to tell some of the stories of the projects I was involved in at Syracuse from 2000 to 2012, and then give you some lessons learned, both as in my time as Associate Dean and also my time as Associate Provost at Syracuse. Now, some of this is coming out. I've got a couple of articles coming out that talk about academic entrepreneurship. Heather spoke about the book that I edited and wrote some chapters in 2011 that talk about academic. And some of those sort of key lessons learned are in that book and in these articles. Okay? 2002, we got a call from the Robin Hood Foundation. Robin Hood Foundation, large foundation in New York City, wanting to make a difference in the lives of school children in New York City. And they felt that perhaps the way to make a difference in the lives of school children in New York City, this large public school system that is heavily criticized and not always viewed as an exemplar of the way to educate children, they felt perhaps the way to do it was through the school library. 650 schools are part of the New York City public school system. So they called us at Syracuse, and I'll go through these stories and slides quickly. They called us at Syracuse, are you willing to help? And you might imagine that from the head of the school library program at Syracuse, and even from the dean at Syracuse, there was a little bit of reluctance. This might be biting off more than we can chew. But there was no question it was going to add value to the lives of the school children in New York City, and there was no question that somebody had to step up to the plate and do it. It was just a matter of building a coalition to get it done. So we put together school faculty from across the East Coast to teach in the PLUS program, preparing librarians for urban schools. And that launched, and I should say with the financial support of the Robin Hood Foundation and the financial support of IMLS, we were able to make a difference and have an impact. We had to modify our school library curriculum to do it, because the Robin Hood Foundation had particular needs. They were focused on literacy. They wanted to make certain reading was a part of it. But we had to stay within the guidelines of New York State in preparing teachers to be school librarians. It was a tough partnership, but very worthwhile, led by my friend and colleague at Syracuse, Ruth Small. Many of you know about WISE and the courses that are put together in WISE. WISE was actually started when Linda Smith, the Associate Dean at the University of Illinois, and I were sitting at a presentation at ALISE, the Association of Library and Information Science Education Conference. And I won't name the presenters, it's nobody in this room, but one presenter got up there and said, yes, in my online class, I teach 90 students. Wow. The next presenter actually got up and said, yes, in my online class in library science, I teach 150 students. And then the next presenter got up and said, in my online class, I teach 225 students. And Linda and I went outside and sat down, and I said, when did we get to the point where we're proud of how many people we can pack into a classroom? That's just not right. There's something really wrong with what we're doing here. And we've got to come together and talk about pedagogy in online education, quality in online education, write up some quality standards about what we want people to have when they're in an online class, and we've got to start collaborating with each other. Now, everybody knows WISE as this organization. There are now 15 members of WISE, including the iSchool at UBC, from around the world. And the students know it as a place where they can take a class from another university. It's a sharing platform for all the schools that have online classes to share these offerings with the students. But WISE actually started as a commitment to quality. And very shortly after that, Linda and I had a meeting in Chicago where we called up the principals from many universities from across the country and said, let's just get together and let's talk about this and let's figure out what we want to do out of it. And of course, it led to funding by IMLS. Okay? So we're thankful for IMLS's role in that funding. Another story, and this is going to be a few stories, but don't worry, there's a video in the middle of this. And I'll make some of these stories quick too. The then senior associate dean for the business school was at Syracuse University, was sitting next to me at a meeting. And he said, Bruce, you know, our students in the business school, they're really not learning how to present. They have poor communication skills. We're hearing this over and over again from our employers. And I said, Clint, you know what? They need to know how to present information to people. That's what the iSchool does. Why don't we start an undergraduate class, or modify an existing undergraduate class actually, to teach the students in the business school better communication skills, better information presentation skills. I said, okay, let's do it. Let's do it. The end result is that every one of the, I think they bring in about 500 new undergraduate students a year, are required to take a class out of the School of Information Studies on information, communication, and presentation. Okay? All from just a simple meeting between the senior associate dean of the business school and I. This is an example of what the students have to do. We call it dome speeches. The iconic structure at Syracuse University is the Carrier Dome. It's a dome stadium where we play our football and our basketball games. If you ever come to the Syracuse campus, it's right on campus. So unlike most universities, the stadium is right there, you know, within feet of the quad. And we take the students over there, we introduce them to executives at Jpmorgan Chase, and they have to give 1-minute pitches for some innovative idea. And this is one of our students giving one of her pitch to somebody. I love this picture. I have to say I love this picture. In our undergraduate program, we were recognizing that right about 2003, 2004, the percentage of women in our undergraduate program was continuing to decline. We had peaked at about 30%, and it was going down and down and down, and it fell below 20%, down to 19% of our undergraduate population being female. It was going in the wrong direction. I knew it was going to be a problem. And some of the women, the undergraduate students, were coming to me and saying, hey, you know, some of the classes were somewhat uncomfortable because we're the only female in a class of 20 or 40 students. You know, let's talk about this. So I brought a group of undergraduate females together and said, what do we want to do about this? We've got to do something. And you guys are the ones that have to tell me what to do. They started the WIT student group, Women in Information Technology. And it made the difference. By just having a student group where those students could get together and focus on who they were with like minds, it enabled them to grow as a group, ultimately resulting in, they call it their Boost project, where they actually go out to disadvantaged neighborhoods or community organizations that serve those that are economically disadvantaged to provide computer training. They actually changed the name of the group. I'm not certain. It's now called the It Girls. I don't know if I would have approved that back when I was associate dean. But it's made a huge difference in the percentage of females in our undergraduate program. Recognize our undergraduate program is a more IT-focused program. Our undergraduate program, which now has surpassed 35%. Still not exactly where we want it to be, but it has made a difference. And then finally, our initiative with Jpmorgan Chase. So, Jpmorgan Chase, large bank, came knocking actually on the door of every university in New York State and said, we need a new curriculum. We can hire students that understand finance, but they don't have the technology skills. We can hire students that have the technology skills. And they were hiring students out of our program, but they don't have the financial background. We need students that can do both. Okay? Pretty tall order. We said we can do it. We put together a coalition of faculty from the business school, faculty from the School of Information Studies, faculty from the computer science department, to create a new undergraduate curriculum called the GET curriculum, Global Enterprise Technology. Created it in concert with executives from Jpmorgan Chase to make certain that the curriculum was delivering the kind of individual that was employable in a modern, technologically sophisticated banking environment. Right? It's a wonderful curriculum, partnership with Jpmorgan Chase, and by the way, they brought $30 million to the table, which helped considerably, which also funded faculty research in this area too. So this is sort of the 2000 to 2007 period in the iSchool at Syracuse University, and it got me thinking, because I have written about what it takes to be innovative and entrepreneurial at the university level. It got me thinking, what does it take, or what did it take to be innovative and entrepreneurial at the iSchool, at least in this one case study, in this one context that I'm familiar with? Well, there are things that I can point to that say, hey, these were the key drivers here. These were the keys to success. Core values that were agreed upon, that are still agreed upon. There's something called the Faculty of One at Syracuse. Nobody's quite certain they know what it means. And you have to explain it over and over again. But it's really a statement of culture. It's respect everybody for who they are, collaborate with everybody, be collaborative in your very nature, and let's do this thing together. It's the cultural statement. Right? If any of you are familiar with Jim Collins' work, Good to Great, Built to Last, I'm a huge fan of Jim Collins' work in this area. And he always, you know, one of the big lessons you learn out of that research is culture matters. It matters a lot. Okay? Peter Drucker's statement of culture trumps strategy every time. Doesn't matter what your strategy is. You have to have the underlying culture to support it. Strategic action, not strategic planning. Right? And this is a big thing, and it's a tough thing for people to get their heads around sometimes, too. It's a matter of when those opportunities come, being willing to raise your hand and say, we will do that for you. Because the opportunities don't come as a matter of a plan. They come randomly. They come out of the blue. They come from sitting next to somebody at a conference and having a conversation. They come from sitting next to somebody in another meeting and solving his problem. And they come from all over the place. So strategic action, not strategic planning. Supportive but disciplined culture. Right? In other words, support all initiatives, but recognize some are going to be successful and some are going to fail. You know, I've got a long list of failures. I've got a pocket full of failures under my belt, right? But it's the willingness to be disciplined to say, hey, what are we expecting out of this? What are our goals out of this? And if we don't reach those goals, what defines failure? And what does it mean to sort of put it aside and say, we're done trying that, just didn't work. Which goes along with willingness to take risks, right? Having a culture that says it's okay for somebody to try and for them to fall flat on their face, And maybe we celebrate that, right? That's fantastic. They tried, I didn't, they tried. I can tell you, when we went into the PLUS initiative, we were scared to death. It was the potential to really fall flat on our face to try and deal with the issues of New York City, given the fact that, for those of you who are familiar with geography, your geography of upstate New York, there are a lot of LIS schools a lot closer to New York City and some in New York City than Syracuse University is. And then my final 2 points. At Syracuse, we have the advantage of a university budget system that supports growth and innovation. It's called RCM budgeting, which means that your school's budget is built on the number of students you have in your school. You want a bigger budget? Get more students. You want a smaller budget? Get fewer students. But you are sort of in control of your destiny, and those incentive structures, I think, do make a difference. But my last point is actually my most important point here. And it's a point that I've seen work within the iSchool at Syracuse and within the University at Syracuse. There's something in the DNA of library and information science faculty and library and information science students that make them natural collaborators. There's just something about it. When we put the Jpmorgan Chase initiative together, the iSchool was the lead on that, but I also had business faculty in the room and engineering faculty in the room. If it was just the business and engineering faculty, it would not have worked. It would have crashed and burned. Because most business school faculties are too obsessed with how great they are. and most, my apologies to all the other business school faculty, and a lot of engineering faculty, my apologies to engineering, are too obsessed with doing their work and not really being communicative with other individuals in the room. They want to do their own thing. The LIS faculty, the information studies faculty, make the difference. They are the glue. They are the bond. They are collaborative by nature. And I contend that so many of the successes we saw with cross-campus initiatives are because of LIS faculty being at the center of those. They might not have the most, it may not be in their wheelhouse intellectually or academically, but they know how to get a group to work together. The same is true of LIS students, I have to say. Many of you know that I've been leading entrepreneurial initiatives at Syracuse University for the last 6 years. And I can tell you when a student team is going to be successful. The student team that's going to be successful has an LIS student at the heart of it. Because the team matters, and the LIS students know how to get people to collaborate with each other. It's an amazing phenomenon. I've had teams of business students and art students, and they crash and burn. I've had teams of engineering students and history students, and they crash and burn. But you give me a team that there's an LIS student there. They know how to keep it together, and they know how to collaborate, and they know how to keep it rolling. Okay. So, in 2007, Chancellor Nancy Cantor at Syracuse University put together a coalition of faculty to go after what's called the Kaufman Campus Initiative Grant. And I had the honor of being asked to be one of those faculty, preparing a large grant proposal for a $3 million grant to change entrepreneurship education at the university. Syracuse had a very strong entrepreneurship department in the business school, of which I'm a faculty member. But the idea behind the Kaufman campus initiatives were to spread entrepreneurship across the campus and also to engage the community. Experiential education, getting students engaged, starting ventures, getting students and faculty helping out with community ventures. We were so pleased to have received the award. It was a $3 million award from the Kauffman Foundation. There was a 5-to-1 match on the award, and people were scared to death of the match. So a $3 million grant means you have to bring in $15 million as matching funds. There were so many, this was the hardest part of it, is convincing people to go for this, and then once we got it, we could do it. I was honored to be chosen by the Chancellor as the PI on the grant and the Associate Provost for Entrepreneurship to lead it. And by the way, when we stopped counting, so the grant was from 2007 to 2012. I stopped counting in 2011, basically, at $30 million in matching funding. So we way exceeded the match, and it was really nothing to be afraid of. But I also, there's nothing that says what you did better than a cute little video, and I'm very thankful not only to my colleagues but some other individuals from Syracuse University that were willing to appear in the video for me. I can get it going.
There's nothing more important to America's future than entrepreneurship. It really is the heart of what makes us special.
Entrepreneurs are one of the great engines of our economy. And right now, we need them more than ever to build businesses, create jobs.
It means finding something you love and saying, I want to build my own way, my own path. And it's the spirit of this country's going on.
Learning about entrepreneurship has done more than change my life. It's really defined my life.
My name is Ryan Dickerson. I'm a junior at Syracuse University, and I designed an ergonomic bolster that can make any flat surface into a comfortable couch. We were featured as one of the coolest college startups in 2010 in Inc. magazine.
The name of our company is Desist Technology, and what we're doing is developing a drinking straw that changes colors in the presence of a daycare straw. We've been working really hard, but it doesn't even seem like work when you're so passionate about what you're doing.
We are infusing entrepreneurship throughout Central New York and throughout Syracuse University. We're encouraging our student entrepreneurs to get ventures started and to work with local entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship is everywhere in Central New York.
So the name of our company is Kingma, and we offer niche, edgy t-shirt designs for the Syracuse students.
We started a company called Cape Square. It's a web services company. We build online software and we do websites.
The name of my company is The Front, and what we're looking to do is revitalize the space of downtown Syracuse.
We are Graphfighters, and we are the first online game for your hand-drawn characters.
I get to hear a new idea every day. There's a freshness about students. They're not afraid to tell you this is a goofy idea.
The Accelerator is an effort by Syracuse University to help student ventures get started. It includes coursework, it includes entrepreneur residence, it includes mentorships, funding, and at the end of the year we have a great contest called Emerging Talk. Emerging Talk is a showcase for student venture owners. They're able to win awards and funding for their ventures.
We got the idea for Brand Yourself when we saw our friends and our colleagues losing job opportunities because of what was out there about them online, and tried to search for them when no one was employed. So we created a platform that makes it really easy for them to manage how they're perceived online.
There's definitely been a cultural change at Syracuse University since the Kauffman initiative started. In our first year, we had to knock down faculty doors and convince them that they were entrepreneurial and to come on board with the initiative. And in a short year, they were coming to us.
Entrepreneurship is not necessarily a word that was in my vocabulary before I came here and before I was involved in these programs.
Our Kauffman Foundation funded initiative exemplifies what we're striving to accomplish at Syracuse University today. We're leveraging our strengths with those of colleagues at partner institutions and across the public, private, and nonprofit sectors to show our students what it takes to tackle real-world challenges.
I want to go into entertainment law. So I have a combination of a BA program for the music industry, and I'm also a dual major in Newhouse in television, radio, and film. It's one of the only programs in the country that combine the music industry with entrepreneurship and communications.
Here at Syracuse University at the Falk Center for Sports Management, entrepreneurship will energize our young people to understand that we need to find a whole new generation of bright young people to reinvent the business.
Syracuse University gave me that opportunity to work with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because if I wouldn't have been in this program, I wouldn't have the drive and the motivation to go out there and look for anything like this.
An entrepreneurial mindset is critical for artists and designers. And when they start working on entrepreneurial projects, they see their things in practice, that they become realities. They feel very empowered by it.
so often form partnerships to make sure that the knowledge that's developed here is spread across the world and is used for the improvement of the human condition.
What we do is make the drugs that exist much better. We are utilizing the protective uptake pathway for vitamin B12 to actually carry it through the stomach, across the intestine, into the bloodstream, thereby allowing us to have an oral insulin. We're going to save lives.
We feel that the new polymers we're making for tissue engineering could have a huge impact on the way medical technology is deployed. We will not be satisfied until there's technologies in doctors' hands for tissue engineering, for the repair of injuries, for the repair of congenital defects.
The Center of Excellence encourages green entrepreneurship across New York State.
We bring together companies and universities and people have intellectual collisions, and they come up with new ideas for new products and services. We accelerate those ideas into the marketplace.
We're trying to train a new generation of students, lawyers, engineers, scientists, MBA students, who really understand the nature of technology commercialization and how to work with entrepreneurs in bringing new technologies to market.
You really need to de-risk your idea, and the Science and Technology Law Center helps us do that. So we can be assured that we have a good idea that will affect the market positively.
Syracuse University has been involved in many local major initiatives, getting our students involved in entrepreneurship and stimulating the Central New York economy.
The Near West Side Initiative is a community-based project that uses the power of art, technology, and innovation to revitalize the 9th poorest census tract in the United States of America. The Kaufman Initiative has brought entrepreneurial students into the Near West Side and helped us by renovating a former drug house into an arts and literacy center, revitalizing a community-based theater, and establishing with our law school a green property management company that will actually be run by the residents of the neighborhood.
The Burton Blatt Institute is very fortunate to be the only institute of its kind to be selected to develop a program called Startup New York, which is just to foster small business innovation and entrepreneurship in New York State for people with disabilities.
They worked with me to figure out my business plan, my financials. I was able to receive a grant. It brought back my self-esteem. I'm now embarrassed that I can be disabled.
Women in general are just waiting to explode on the scene. The Wise Symposium. This year, it attracted 1,000 women. We do training and workshops, guidance, financing. It's amazing what support and networking do for someone.
The Entrepreneurship Bootcamp for Veterans is a program that helps disabled veterans as entrepreneurs get businesses started.
There was an opportunity to leverage what we do well here at Whitman School to serve those who have served all of us.
And we just keep saying thank you, thank you, thank you. But the greatest thanks, of course, is to make a success of ourselves.
The first class we put through in 2007 was a class of 20 veterans. Today, 17 of the 20 have businesses. 4 of those 17 in 2009 did more than $1 million in revenue.
Entrepreneurship really, for me, is a journey in self-awareness and how I can work with other people to make our vision a reality.
If you're able to come up with a niche idea and develop it into something that you can call your own, there's nothing like it else in the world.
When you're an entrepreneur, you are inventing, you are creating, and you are making a mark on society. And you get a chance to look back and say, that's mine, I did it. And that's where that fire comes from.
So that gives you a bit of an idea of some of the things that we did during that time frame. The $3 million I got in a grant, all of that money, every dime of it, was designated to give out to faculty to to help get their project started. That made me a very popular person on campus. In the end, we funded 165 projects, the results of which you see there. That was just a handful of the 165. We went from 30 courses on entrepreneurship to 70 courses, so 40 new courses on entrepreneurship across campus. So the 30 original courses were really in the business school, the 40 new, most of them are outside of the business school. Another, I think it was 80 classes were infused with entrepreneurship education, right? And what I like to tell people is 80% of the projects were successful and 20% were failures, right? So it was a matter of investing in people and saying, you know, let's go, I'm with you, I will help you, let's raise additional money for what you're doing. One of the most successful projects actually was our Entrepreneurship Boot Camp for Veterans with Disabilities. And that was a faculty member, a former vet that just wanted to teach it to veterans. Small class of 20 in the summer of 2007. I said, Mike, let's do it. Let's just go for it. See what happens. And if the only thing that happens out of this is we have one class of veterans in the summer of 2000, that's great. That's phenomenal. That's worth it. Let's do it. $50,000 to get that started. Now, that program is franchised to 10 universities in the U.S. It has brought in close to $20 million in outside funding from Pepsi, from Walmart, from alumni at Syracuse University that just continued to give to help out the initiative. And like I said, it's all over the country now, and Syracuse manages that program. None of it would have been possible without phenomenal faculty that were willing to step up to the plate and to make a difference. And as I said, many of those core teams, there was an LIS faculty member at the heart of those teams. I have to say this too, that when I saw those students, this is the first time I sat back and looked at the students talking about their ventures, talking about who they were. You don't know this, I know this. Half of those students are from the School of Information Studies, right? Some of those students are law students or education students or business students or art students. But half of the students I saw up there were School of Information Studies students, which is absolutely wonderful. So, if you want to know more, this is the website, entrepreneurship.syr.edu. It gives some of our signature programs. But I did want to spend a little bit of time talking about some of the programs that an iSchool faculty member was at the heart of the program. So the south side of Syracuse, economically depressed, predominantly African-American community on the south side of Syracuse, having a lot of trouble, right? We started the Southside Innovation Center there as a place for community entrepreneurs to come, get training, start small businesses. We started the Southside Initiative there as a way for school children to come and get access to technology, as well as some other programs that helped out the community. And there was one faculty member in the iSchool that said, I don't know if any of you know Murali Venkatesh, but he said, I want to do something. I want to be involved in this initiative, and I want to help this community on the south side. Murali, great. Let's figure out a way to get it done. So he partnered with the branch of the Syracuse Public Library in that community and said, you know, let's start a digital access day. He would run the program to invite children in from the community to talk about digital access, build with his students in a wonderful class called Technology as a Public Good. They installed a wireless node in the public library. The students actually ran and continue to run the Digital Access Day every year in order to get the kids in that neighborhood into the public library and exposed to more technology. And could not have been done without Murali Venkatesh. We started a program called the Kaufman Entrepreneurship Engagement Fellows. And what that really means is that if you're an undergraduate at Syracuse and you graduate and you want to go to graduate school at Syracuse, I'll give you the first year of tuition for free if you're willing to start a venture that's going to make a difference in the Central New York community. Right? We have about a dozen students every year that take advantage of that. And of course, there's all kinds of filters that they go through. Pete Kistler, who you saw in the video earlier, iSchool undergraduate student, iSchool graduate student, started brandyourself.com. My students, I told my students some incorrect information last night. I said they had 85 concierge customers in the first 2 months. They actually had 185. Went back and read the... So brandyourself.com is an online reputation management company that Pete started with 4 of his friends. Because of this concierge service, their monthly revenue is about $150,000 a month now. So they just kicked it up to the next level and about doubled their monthly revenue with the new service they were offering. Back to Ruth Small, who's one of the faculty members. She started the Center for Digital Literacy, and as part of that, with money from the Kaufman Foundation, started a program on innovation for children, right? Using the school library as the landscape, as the hub for encouraging students in that elementary school to be innovative, in partnership with an organization called By Kids for Kids. I don't have time to tell you the By Kids for Kids story, all the stories. A wonderful story, though. The guy that started this organization actually left a Wall Street job to lead this new organization. His daughter, as a 12-year-old, he was so worried about his daughter. I would use his words, but they're somewhat offensive, that things were going downhill fast for his daughter. And so they brought in a tutor, as any family that had the means could do. They brought in a tutor to help his daughter out. The tutor asked the daughter to draw a picture with crayons. First meeting, just draw a picture with crayons. We'll go from there. Daughter broke down in tears, ran upstairs, could not draw a picture with crayons. Tutor's thinking, oh my God. Tutor comes back the next week, beautiful picture is drawn. Said, how did you do this? Said, well, my dad gave my mother some roses. They had these plastic things at the bottom of the roses to hold the water. I'd emptied the water out, put the crayons in them. I figured out that made it large enough for me to use and to draw a picture. The tutor went to the father and said, you get a patent lawyer right now. The daughter filed a patent. These By Kids for Kids crayon holders you can pick up in any Toys R Us made the daughter fairly wealthy before the age of 16. The family was already well off, and so not every family can afford to hire a patent attorney for their child when they do something. But it also got the father thinking, hey, there are other kids out there with great ideas. We've got to have a system of support that helps children with great ideas. And in partnership with Syracuse University, we were able to do that. You saw the Entrepreneurship Bootcamp for Veterans in the video. What you didn't see was the program that we built on top of that, focusing on information technology skills and information management for disabled veterans. Okay? So the program itself, the Entrepreneurship Bootcamp for Veterans, is to teach disabled veterans how to be entrepreneurs. But on top of that, a few years later, we folded in a program with support from Jpmorgan Chase to help other disabled veterans get the needed IT skills and information management skills so that they could be productive in that way if they might not want to start their own business, although some of them are actually starting web businesses too. This may be the final one. Scott Nicholson, some of you may know Scott Nicholson is a faculty member at Syracuse University. He was just getting started on gamification. And so it created the great opportunity for a faculty member to go out to some of the local public libraries and start these, I can't remember what it's called, it's sort of the startup weekend, the hackathons for gamers. Does anybody remember what these called? I can't remember what it's called. No. Where essentially people come into the public library on that particular day and create new games around a particular theme. And these are national days for those that are interested in principally board games. So also for Scott Nicholson, got him, his students out in the community, out into the public libraries to make a difference. Oh, and finally, the RVD idea, it says underneath an EDA University Center. So IDEA stands for Innovation Disruptive Entrepreneurship Accelerator. It's the entire program at Syracuse that helps students, regardless of major, to get ventures started. It includes an incubator in partnership with the Chamber of Commerce. It includes curriculum that takes you from creation to venture formation to running a business. The students in my class are getting all that in one class, but at Syracuse it's actually 3 different classes over 3 different semesters. And it includes, actually it's now one of the top 3 in the U.S. Business plan competitions at the end of the semester, at the end of the year, sorry, at the end of the year. You can see our award ceremony. There's about 500 people that come to this. About 150, last year 150 student teams submitted their venture ideas to try and gain funding. Last year we gave out $130,000 in funding in blocks of $2, $5, $10, and $20,000. There are 6 different categories. It also then led to the New York State Business Plan competition and us partnering with Albany College of Nanotechnology on a statewide competition. This grew out of a single class in 2008 of 13 students. This grew out of a conversation in my office with a gentleman by the name of Nasser Ali, who was in charge of the community incubator. And the community incubator was failing. He came to my office and said, Bruce, I've got 70% occupancy on this incubator, and it's not going up, it's going down. Things are not looking good. I want to do something with the university. Let's figure out what we can do. And I said, if you've got 30% of your space, give it to me as an incubator, and I will open it up to students. Now, that first class, we only had 13 students. And that first summer, we only had 5 ventures get started in that space. They had a lot of space. And one of the ventures got a cease and desist letter within 3 weeks of forming, and so they were out right away. So we ended up with 4 ventures starting that first summer, and you know, I was scared. We were scared that we were going nowhere fast. 4 years later, like I said, 150 ventures applying. That really represents about 400 students. We put 25 to 30 ventures in the incubator every summer, but based on a filter. So not all the students get funding, obviously. Not all the students get into the incubator. And then we have this event that now attracts about 500 people at the event, including investors, to hear what's going on with the students. The bottom left is actually the sort of business showcase for the students at the event. And the bottom right are 3 iSchool students that have started ventures. iSchool students, 1 a PhD student, 1 an undergraduate student, 1 a master's student that have started various ventures. So what we did last year is I noticed, so another story. I know I'm running out of time and giving you more stories than you wanted. At the university, we have these poles that have university banners that hang on them all across campus. There are 64 of these poles, including they rim the quad at the university. And the banners were looking pretty ratty. They were starting to deteriorate. They weren't looking good. They'd been made 2 years ago. So I happened to know the individual that was in charge of marketing for the university. And I said, hey, you know what? You need new banners. You need new banners. You don't have the budget for banners. Let me give you new banners. Okay? So at the university, every one of these poles now has a banner that says, I am a PhD student, I am a library science student, I'm a political science student, and I have ideas. And then, of course, drives them to idea.syr.edu, which is our website around this initiative. So we took pictures of students, we put this up across campus, and the whole campus is now covered in these banners. The gentleman at the top left, so this is the danger of entrepreneurship, I have to say. It is interfering with him finishing his dissertation. You know, sometimes I regret introducing cascading entrepreneurship. Just a brilliant guy, excellent coder, and has a number of venture ideas that are doing well. The young woman in the middle, undergraduate student, was also named a cool college startup by Inc. magazine about a year ago. Just fantastic student, and the young man at the bottom is a master's student. From my book and some of the articles that are coming out, what does it take for successful academic entrepreneurship initiatives? Each one of the faculty that came with funding had to fill out a mini grant proposal. And we went down the checklist with them, okay? What's the big idea? What are you doing differently that's creative, that's innovative? Who is the academic champion? The worst projects are those that come to you with a team of individuals that we're all equal. And I always say, no. Who's in charge? Who's the one person that when this fails, you're going to raise your hand? My fault. It failed. My fault. So I'm a big believer, and I'd say the worst thing that happens is when a dean comes into your office and says, I'd really like you to support this. No. Who's in charge of it? I know you're a dean. You don't have time to be in charge of it. Who is doing it? How does it benefit student learning and satisfy learning outcomes? The heart of a university is its students. I'm a big believer that when a university does something, it has to have a positive impact, a value add to its students. Is there a community partner? Recognize that under Nancy Cantor's leadership as Chancellor, it was important for us to engage the community. So is there a community partner with this initiative? We went through the financials and the sustainability plan, including those metrics of how are we going to measure success a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, so that we have it on a piece of paper that says, hey, you said you were going to have 50 students, you have 3 students participating in this. Let's talk about this, because this was the goal. Who's on your team? It's important to have a team. And is there supportive leadership, meaning, is your dean or program director on board too? Because I had some of those circumstances where the faculty member was on board, but the dean was definitely not on board. I'm already running out of time. This is just a little bit from, I don't want to go through this because I really don't have time, but at the same time, if you've never read business books and you want the best business books to read Good to Great and Built to Last. I'm still a big believer, even though they're a little dated now, there's still great lessons in them that I'm a big believer in. And again, thank you for having me here. I know we don't have much time for questions, but I appreciate the opportunity to share with you some of the things that I've been doing over the last few years. Thank you.
Social entrepreneurship doesn't require a different mindset than for-profit entrepreneurship.
Yes and no. So I have a good friend who wrote a famous paper called All Entrepreneurship is Social Entrepreneurship. And what the core of that is, one, if you're a social entrepreneur, it doesn't mean you don't have to be financially responsible. So you still have to think about the funding mechanisms and the revenues that drive what you're going to be doing, right? So you don't escape the fact that you have to be concerned about revenue and income. But both, if you're a for-profit entrepreneur, it's foolish to go into that business to make a lot of money, right? If you go into it to make a lot of money, you will crash and burn as an entrepreneur. It's those individuals that go into it to making a meaningful impact in the lives of others. If those individuals that go into it to say, hey, I'm going to make a difference in other people and add value to their lives, they become successful. This conversation with somebody, I think one of the students the other day, is even Mark Zuckerberg, right? Why did Zuckerberg start Facebook? It's because he wanted to be big man on campus at Harvard, right? It's because he wanted to create something that everybody would love him. It really wasn't about the financial motivations at the start. Great for-profit entrepreneurs still at the heart of it have, I'm going to make a difference in people's lives. And that has to be at the heart of the social entrepreneur too, right? I'm going to add value to what other people are doing or to other people's lives.
Perhaps I'll ask a question. Yeah, you've given us some guidance in terms of creating entrepreneurial university. programs would you impart to students who may not have the benefit of entrepreneurial education, but are going out to work as professionals in various community organizations? What sorts of spirit can they take?
So there's a term called entrepreneurship, which is really working within the organization to be innovative and creative, which is an extremely important mindset to bring into it, right? That I can make a difference in this organization. I'm going to look for those opportunities where I can make a difference in this organization. One of the people I absolutely love, I'm a big fan of Krista McDonough, who is the head of the Science Industry and Business Library, part of the New York Public Library, okay? She's got a great facility in Manhattan, right? And she is all into entrepreneurship. And she runs probably the largest business plan competition in the U.S. out of the New York Public Library every year. 700 applications every year. She points to the desks in her library and says, you know that big company down on 34th Street? This was his first desk. You know that company down on 16th Street that does it? That was her first desk. She takes amazing pride in the entrepreneurs that have been launched out of the New York Public Library. So even within an organization, there are ways to take these lessons and implement it. And I know that within the, as an example, within the public library community, there are more and more public libraries offering business plan competitions to their communities. So, go ahead.
Okay. So I know that since you've arrived here, you've been talking with lots of local people on campus and off campus as well, I think. So I'm kind of curious if you've reached any insights about the Canadian context or even the local BC context and how it is similar or different from the Syracuse context.
Vancouver has an incredibly rich entrepreneurial ecosystem down in the Gastown district. There is no question. I have really enjoyed my visits over there. There is an entrepreneurial spirit in the community that's very strong, that I would love to see the university and the community sort of leverage more that spirit. Because in all honesty, I am jealous of the community entrepreneurs that you guys have in Vancouver. Because at Syracuse, it's all coming out of the university. Because there really wasn't a whole lot in the community. And so it was important to leverage the university as an anchor institution to Central New York to sort of create things there. I went to the Launch Academy a few weeks ago, which is the incubator, the accelerator down in Gastown. I was blown away. I wish I built the incubator in Syracuse, the sandbox. I mean, I had a very active hand in building that. I wish I would have seen Launch Academy first, because and it's packed. Launch Academy is packed with people starting ventures there. It's just amazing and wonderful, amazing stories that are going on there. So it's the Vancouver community already has this rich entrepreneurial ecosystem. I think it's just a matter of building more of the network back to the university. And the university already has, I mean, it's a phenomenal university that you guys are a part of. I mean, it's a really rich infrastructure with amazing resources. I think both together would be very powerful. So.